Welcome to this Whole Life Action Hour. I am Ocean Robbins, your host. And today we're going to focus on your mood and your food and the connection between the two, which is extraordinarily powerful. Did you know that blueberries can help you cope with PTSD? Did you know that salami can cause depression? Did you know that mood-boosting vitamin D can actually help with anxiety? What you eat has an enormous impact on your brain and on your mental health and your emotional well-being. And we are here today for this conversation with one of the world's top experts on this topic, a nutritional psychiatrist, Naidoo, MD. She is the US pioneer in the field of nutritional psychiatry. She founded the only nutritional psychiatry clinic at an academic hospital. She's a board-certified psychiatrist, she's a professional chef, and she's a nutritional specialist. That is an incredibly powerful combination, as you are going to see today. She is the director of nutritional and metabolic psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital, director of nutritional psychiatry at MGH Academy, and she serves on the faculty at Harvard Medical School. She is also a culinary instructor at the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts and the best-selling author of This Is Your Brain on Food, which is a fantastic book. Uma, it's so great to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Ocean. I'm delighted to talk with you today, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Now, before we dive all the way in, I do want to share one very quick disclaimer. Nothing you hear today is medical advice. We're sharing our own best insights, our own best wisdom. And of course, you should always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding your specific physical and mental health needs. That said, you're going to learn a lot today. This event is a project of Whole Life Club, which is Food Revolution Network's ongoing membership community. So some of the questions that we will be bringing today come from Whole Life Club's members. All right, so first of all, Uma, I want to ask you to describe at a kind of broad level, mental health is such a big topic. And a lot of us don't really think of it as being very connected to our bodies and our food, because it's like what's going on in our brains and it's how we feel, and somehow there's that separation. But you're saying that it's all connected at a physiological, biochemical level. Can you explain a little bit about some of the dynamics that ensue that cause us to get out of balance physically, and then that show up in how we think and how we feel?
That's a great question, Ocean, because many of us just don't associate how we eat with how we feel, yet we might speak about it all the time. I'd like people to think about the last time that they had a headache and what they did. They might have reached for Tylenol or some other headache medication and taken it with a bit of water and swallowed it. And the hope is that 10, 15 minutes later, that headache would be relieved. The headache is often related to the neurological tissue or the brain tissue. So in a similar way, I don't think we've really taken the time to think through that food also has a similar effect on a biochemical, physiological, and actually on a molecular level. So, for example, some of the emerging science around the gut-brain connection and the gut microbiome has really come forth in the last 2 decades and has really unfolded that mood-food connection. Nutritional psychiatry is the use of healthy whole foods and nutrients to improve your mental well-being. It does not exclude the use of medications or other therapies, but it is also not as simple as eating 10 blueberries or taking 10 milligrams of Prozac. So let's take vitamin B9, for example, which is otherwise called folate. Low levels of folate are actually associated with symptoms of depression, and it's hypothesized that the mechanism is its role in producing neurotransmitters such as serotonin, often called a happiness hormone, norepinephrine, and even things like melatonin. Similarly, vitamin C and zinc are necessary cofactors in the neurotransmitter production. And optimal status of those becomes really important to get your best mental health. The B vitamins we know are important because they're involved in so much of energy production in the body, and so forth and so on. And what we try to do is break down the different nutrients and unpack the scientific evidence behind them in mental health.
Yes, absolutely. And now hormones are a significant factor in mental health too, aren't they? It's certainly emotional health. How does that play in with nutrients, and how does that piece add to the equation here?
So, you want to think about the gut microbiome, Ocean, and that gut-brain connection as almost, especially the area of the microbiome, as an area that is almost like Central Station in New York. Almost every train connects through there. Or think about one of the largest airports. Um, so it's very simply, the gut microbes, there are about 39 odd trillion microbes that reside in the gut microbiome. There are five different types. Mostly the bacteria have been studied, but when they are thriving and functioning optimally, they are helping us with sleep, circadian rhythm, which is our internal body clock, hormone production, minerals, vitamins, immunity, but also mental health and more. So one of the ways that hormones are impacted are one through through stress and through cortisol, also through the gut microbiome and the impact there with the gut microbes. So it's the way that we want to think about it is that it's an entire system that's interacting through that connection, but then impacting other parts of the body as well. So hormones are hugely important.
Yes, thank you. Um, there are a lot of different things that fall under the broad category of mental health. Of course, we've got depression and anxiety that are very widespread. A lot of people just feeling kind of down. And then you've got more serious conditions. Of course, there's specific diagnosed conditions like bipolar and a whole range of other dynamics people can face, right? And I'm curious, do you think that there are particular mental health conditions that seem to be especially diet and lifestyle responsive? Do you think that in general, healthy diet and lifestyle can be beneficial with pretty much all mental health conditions, or are there some that are really in a whole other category?
So, I think we want to think about this in a particular way because it also, when it comes to mental health condition, a diagnosed mental health condition, because I agree with you, Ocean, through the pandemic, people have been feeling blue, feeling a little anxious, a lot of angst, a lot of worry, a lot of poor sleep. So much so that I think I mentioned it before that insomnia is called coronasomnia. So we want to also think about the fact that some conditions may require more urgent and immediate health care. Severe depression where someone is actively suicidal, manic depression where someone is actively manic in a manic phase of bipolar disorder, or someone has lost touch with reality. Those would require more emergent care in a hospital, an emergency room to see their doctor immediately. But it doesn't mean that food can't help. It's more that the condition is urgent and needs treatment first. Food can always be helpful. So any change, whether your condition is bipolar disorder or depression, or the anxiety that many are feeling, cleaning up our diet, moving towards those plant-rich foods, including really healthy nutrients, and less of the processed, ultra-processed junk foods and fast foods that are highly sugared, the healthier we're going to be, both physically, but more importantly, also mentally. So there are those conditions that, we want to be careful about making sure we get emergent care for if it's acute, but then we also want to always lead with diet as well as other options that your doctors are giving you.
The Ornish program was the first major lifestyle-based intervention to actually be covered by Medicare and the big insurance companies as a legitimate treatment for reversal of chronic illness. The cornerstones of the Ornish program are essentially eat better, stress less, love more, and move more. Would you say that these are the same basic pillars, which Dr. Ornish has proven can be helpful with pretty much all of the major chronic physical illnesses of our times? Would you say these are the same basic pillars that you advocate for mental health?
They overlap very closely with the pillars of nutritional psychiatry which we use, and I agree with not only the work, I agree with those principles. For example, Ocean, there have been studies on loneliness through the pandemic, which have shown an impact on both physical health as well as mental health due to the necessary quarantine and isolation that we've had to face. So all of these things may seem separate, but they're actually all together in the body. So, for example, oxytocin is the hugging hormone, and it is also related to food. So these connections are very intricate. I agree with the program and what it stands for. And a recent large study actually indicated the benefits of the DASH diet on symptoms of stress, insomnia, and ADHD. So it really is coming forth in the research and showing us that lifestyle, diet, relationships, social connections are all part of a synergistic puzzle, which make our lives what they are. And it doesn't exclude the need for medications if someone might be prescribed them, or psychotherapy. All of these are very important interventions, especially in mental health.
Thank you. A lot of people who are suffering from depression find it hard to get motivated to do anything constructive. So typically people who are depressed are less likely to exercise, and they're more drawn to unhealthy foods, which maybe provide some temporary relief, but long-term, of course, deepen the cycle. People who are depressed are more likely to watch scary movies. They're more likely to make choices that are maybe negative for their love and intimacy needs and their relationships. And these create these negative feedback loops that for many people are very hard to get out of. What do you say to somebody who is finding it hard to get the motivation? They know that they should do better and make better choices, exercise more, eat better, reach out more to friends and loved ones. But quite frankly, they just don't feel good and don't feel like doing much. How do you break those cycles?
It's a tough one because, I think that it's hard to say to someone, oh, just do this or do that. And one has to be really respectful and careful of how we offer the advice, because someone may be in a very difficult place. Because the science, between cravings is complex. The science behind how we respond to things, that lack of motivation, is all connected within the different systems of our bodies. So some of the things I think about is, what might appeal to that person? What do they think they might be able to do? Someone is feeling really lacking energy, but I know that I want them to exercise. I might say, can you walk to get a cup of coffee? Can you walk your dog? Can you walk to get the newspaper? Can you start with some small, simple steps which feel achievable, which get you back into sort of a healthier lifestyle that you may have stepped back from for whatever else may be going on? I also want to address it through what you're eating, cleaning up your diet, thinking about healthier foods that you can use to motivate yourself, to give yourself a little bit more energy. Because let's face it, if we're eating a fast food diet, we know that that food is disrupting our microbiome. We know that fast food French fries actually contain sugar, and research development has shown those to be hyperpalatable and tap into those craving cycles. So we want to think about this on multiple levels, and we want to help someone, sort of encourage them towards even a healthier point, because it's a slow and steady continuum of really improving your health, but also, say, starting a little bit of exercise or starting to eat something healthier. And it may not be easy. This is where therapy, an important relationship, social connections become important, involving family members to help that individual as well. If it's I think it's important to try to help someone out of that difficult spot.
Yeah, it strikes me that in the same way that there are negative feedback loops, there are also positive feedback loops, and any single step taken in a constructive direction, whether it's starting therapy, or for some people, it's getting on the right medication regimen. For other people, it's going to be reaching out to a loved one, just sharing their struggles with somebody who cares. For
Yeah,
other people, it's definitely going to be food or exercise or mindfulness practices. Any of these things can be doorways out, essentially, of the negative cycle, and then they can build on each other. So if you feel a
that's
little bit better because
yeah.
you do something that helps, you can use that feeling better to make better choices, which help you feel better still, and then the cycle reverses.
I agree with that, Ocean, and it's a wonderful way to describe it, because just that one step in the right direction, I see this all the time in my nutritional psychiatry practice. A simple habit change related to a food. A few days later, the person is emailing or calling me and saying, I want to do more. I want to learn more habits because I'm starting to feel better. I'm sleeping better. And sometimes it happens within a week, if not a few days. And it's not that all the changes happen so suddenly. It's more that a person starts to feel better, and then they want to embrace more of it. So I think that that's an important step in what we're speaking about, because we're not talking about a quick fix on overnight fast pill or magic pill. We're talking about something that is slow and steady habit change that's going to help your physical health and your mental health.
Yeah, thank you. A friend of mine, Van Jones, describes the scenario of driving to work, eating a donut, driving by the gym. And he says, hope is saying, wow, I could stop eating donuts and I could join that gym, right? And then change is actually stopping eating the donuts and not just joining the gym, but actually showing up and working out, right? And then he says, but you don't get change without hope. Like you don't, hope opens the door, change walks through it, right? Change is actually what creates the result, but you don't get there without hope. And I think this is one of the critical pieces, is that people who are suffering from depression are also suffering from a lack of hope. And so I think, what would you say to people in that position to restore their sense of hope or possibility?
That I think that there is hope to feel better, that there is a path. And that's where a trusting relationship with either therapist, a doctor, a primary care physician, a psychiatrist, even a loved one, a parent, a spouse, could be super helpful to encourage them along the path that there is hope, that there are these individuals who've gotten better, whether it's medication, therapy, food, and a all combination of all of those things, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that holding on to that hope becomes extremely important, while respecting how that person is feeling, helping them feel maybe less guilty and less ashamed. Because one of the things I see in mental health all the time is people are so ashamed of how they're feeling and that they're not feeling well, they're not able to function. And helping them understand that you have respect and they should feel grace with the position they're in and honor their feelings, but also be able to take your hand as you, whether virtually or in person, are leading them through a better place to think through what can we do constructively to help you feel better. Even one simple food change, even one simple habit change around sleep can make a difference. That you could help them with some sleep hygiene, or practitioner could, and if they start to sleep better, their mood could improve. So it is simple as those types of steps that often we may overlook because we're looking for something more complicated, but it often starts with simple steps.
Yeah, so let's get practical with that for a moment. So first I want to ask you, what are the top foods people need to eat less of if they're concerned about their mental health or they just want to feel better?
I think that you won't be surprised by these, Ocean. We've even spoken about them before, but we have not connected these foods to mental health before. So it's those fast foods, junk foods, processed foods, ultra processed foods, processed vegetable oils. It's the trans fats in sort of baked goods and shelf stable goods. It's artificial sweeteners. It's sort of those highly sugared foods which have the added and refined sugars are not the best for us. Mm-hmm. Many of our foods in the supermarket that are processed have high fructose corn syrup. So we are consuming sugar often without even realizing it from savory foods. So being mindful of those types of big food groups become important. The more times that we can eat healthy whole foods, foods that we can see, that we can touch, that we can, an orange is just an orange, and we know that it's a fruit. It becomes easier for us, because the moment you're looking at a label and it has 25 ingredients and you don't recognize it, you know that we're heading down a path that's not as healthy for us. So starting to cut back on those is one of the most important things. And just start with one simple thing, one thing that you feel maybe you've picked up during the pandemic that is bothering you. Start there, start small, and make it an achievable goal by being able to attain that and then build on that slowly.
Yes. There's some interesting research on food dyes and food additives and children and ADHD. We see so many kids that are struggling to focus in school, that are struggling with various mental health challenges. It used to be that we didn't see that in our children. They were pretty resilient, but it seems like the rate of various challenges, mental health challenges, behavioral challenges in our kids is skyrocketing. And some research indicates that this may be connected in part to the foods that we're giving our kids. How impactful do you think food dyes and additives, artificial flavorings, and sugars are on our young ones?
I think that they are bad for the brain. And I don't think that that's rocket science for us to understand. I don't mean that in any kind of offensive way, but these are foods. The brain is developing from in utero, and a child who is really leaning on these foods um, is simply not going to have the best brain development. Now, the good thing is that if we fall into some of those habits, perhaps we don't have access, perhaps we're in a community where we don't have the type of foods that someone else may have access to. The truth is, we can always make habit changes and healthy changes. And if we do, that will improve the development of the brain. What's been happening is the rates of obesity in children are hugely increased. And what has also happened, we may not be connecting the two, but that child mental health and adolescent mental health is significantly increased. So much so that the CDC released statistics in summer of 2020 talking about suicide rates in teens, and this being much higher. So this is a scary time, and one of the ways we want to think about it is these are not good nutrients for our children. They're not good nutrients for us, but also not good nutrients for the brain. We know from recent study that I mentioned earlier that the DASH diet was studied on symptoms of stress and insomnia, as well as ADHD, and found that it was a cross-sectional study of about 181 girls between ages 18 to 25 years old. And it looked at the types of food they were eating, and the neuropsychological function of the participants were evaluated using standard questionnaires. And adherence to simply the DASH diet was associated with reduced stress and with difficulty both initiating sleep, but also improved focus. So we know from research that has been ongoing and continues, and new studies come out all the time, that it proves eating those plant-rich diets, eating, the foods that are healthy whole foods that you can identify, and understanding what's in your food versus a packaged processed fast food becomes more important. So the best we can try to incorporate those more often, the healthier we will be mentally and also physically.
What are some of the top foods? I mean, we often think in nutrients, which of course is important, but the truth is that nutrients in food don't come by themselves. They come as part of a whole. And sometimes, remarkably often, we study a nutrient in isolation and don't get the result that we got when we looked at it as part of a whole foods system. So I'd rather than focus, we could talk about some of the nutrients, but I'd rather focus a little bit on the foods right now. What are some of the foods that you see the most associated with improvements in mental health, like the superstars?
The superstars, I would like to start with the things that people may be surprised by because they thought of as being, simple. But here's the thing, they are power packed with nutrients that you just referred to, Ocean. One of those is simply leafy greens, the greener the better, packed with folate and other nutrients, iron, zinc, magnesium, all of these extremely important for brain function, important for biochemical reactions in the body, low levels of folate associated with low mood. So packing those in become not only easy, but so important. When we talk about colorful vegetables, and those colors are the bright polyphenols and plant phytonutrients that we need, that our biochemical reactions need. Magnesium is involved in 300 biochemical reactions in the body. The B vitamins are important with energy in the body, and therefore related to neurotransmitter function. So including those foods are rich in B vitamins. Think about different colors, different textures of those vegetables. Eating color of the rainbow is so important. Then I like to think about prebiotic foods, things like garlic, leeks, and onions, simple things that you might add to a soup or a stew, or even a sauteed, roasted veggie dish. These are great for your gut. And there's so many other prebiotic foods that actually help to nurture those gut microbes. Another category that people tend to ignore are herbs and spices. Turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, saffron, rosemary, thyme, Mexican oregano, so many of these have hugely important effects on the brain and effects on your mental health. So adding those into your foods become really important. So spices different kinds of superstar, adding in your colors of the rainbow, your leafy greens are also important. And then, thinking about nuts and seeds, which have those short chain omega-3s like chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, walnuts. All of those are so important to start to add in to how we're eating.
Wonderful. Thank you. I want to turn now to a few of the questions from our members. Deborah asked about saffron. She said, I've heard that saffron is a natural way to help with mood and well-being. I also read that it promotes eye health as well. Is there any research about adding saffron to recipes or taking supplements? And is it indeed helpful? And which is better, eating it or supplementing with it?
So I'll start with the last part of the question first, because there's a significant amount of research around the use of saffron improving depression. But when we cook with saffron, it's a very delicate spice. You use very little of it, and it's a very expensive spice. The culinary use is not sufficient to create those brain benefits. So it's one instance where supplement would be a good idea, because the research on the association between saffron and symptoms of depression is pretty compelling, with numerous studies and systematic reviews that suggest saffron might have similar effects, such as commonly prescribed selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRI medications, and saffron has fewer side effects than those medications. A recent 2020 review of many individual trials suggests that adding saffron to a person's diet can be of benefit in preventing the progression of degenerative eye disease, such as diabetic retinopathy, age-related macular degeneration, glaucoma, as well as some other ocular conditions. So by all means, if adding some saffron to your food is a great idea, but I think using a supplement, if that, will probably give you the dose that some of these trials have looked at. Certainly the ones in depression looked at much higher doses and in a supplemental form. So it's an idea to try that out and make sure to discuss it with your doctor as well.
Are the supplements essentially just a powdered version of saffron put into a capsule, perhaps at a higher quantity than one would want to consume culinarily, or are they extracted or processed in some way?
They definitely extracted and processed, so always look for a clean supplement when you can. So it's not simply the saffron spice crushed and placed in a capsule. There is a process that they undergo, but in the supplement, they're able to extract high amounts of saffron that if you're using a few strands delicately on a dish, that you wouldn't get that amount from.
Okay, got it. And what's the typical, are we talking like 50 milligrams, or is there a particular amount that people typically are taking in the studies?
So, I don't have the dose off the top of my head, but usually I think the supplements that are marketed toward mood have the correct dosage, and that's why you want to discuss finding the right supplement with your doctor to see that it's appropriate for what you might be looking to do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. We heard from Christina, who asked, what's the best exercise to help with depression? And is there a particular amount of time needed?
Sure. So, the going back to the comment that your friend mentioned about eating the donut and driving past the gym. Well, in a similar way, the best exercise is the one that you do consistently and that you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're going to continue doing it. No point in me saying hop on that treadmill if you hate that. So there's a good amount of research in exercise as a whole, improving sleep, which, as we all know, connection to sleep and depression is key. So if you're sleeping better, it's naturally going to lift your mood. Increasing endorphins, which immediately elevate mood, so it gives you that good feeling when you exercise. It's important, though, to stick to it. You have to sort of do these exercises consistently. So maybe you choose something with low intensity, but it's more sustainable, and you can do it more often, if not daily. That's usually the best exercise, is the one that works for you. For heart health, the American Heart Association recommends a minimum of 150 minutes of exercise weekly. So you might want to take that as a guidance. There are some studies that have looked at the certain number of steps that you should be taking. So looking at those and finding something that works for you there, or a combination thereof, is really the best way to think about exercise. But it definitely helps with mood.
Yeah, thank you. Kathy said, I follow a vegan diet with a strong emphasis on nutritarianism. I eat blueberries every day and take 5,000 IUs of D3 daily. I live in cold Canada, along with 120 micrograms of K2, which is a good thing to have in combination. She said, I live alone with very little social interaction, and I must take care of my property, dogs, and myself on my own. However, this causes stress very often and sometimes anxiety when things are difficult. I've heard B vitamin supplements will help with stress, but I don't want to add a lot of supplements to my diet. Should I try B vitamin supplements, or can you suggest any particular foods that might be more beneficial?
Sure. So thinking about vitamin D rich foods, you might want to think about mushrooms. Mushrooms are a great source of vitamin D. Um, B vitamins you can actually obtain from foods like nutritional yeast, from nuts, leafy greens. But you also, Kathy may want to, I'm a big proponent of test don't guess, maybe ask your doctor to check your vitamin B12 level, your vitamin D level, especially if you live in a colder region, parts of certainly the far northeast. Individuals sometimes have low vitamin D levels, but you can also start to improve how you're eating and the foods that you continue to include. You also could look at, if you're looking at supplements, you may also look at an algal oil supplement, which gives you those plant-based sources of omegas that you could benefit how you're feeling as well. And also, I'm sure it's tough what you're doing, but one of the things I'm going to suggest is get on FaceTime, use Zoom, find a way to connect with your loved ones, your friends, if they're not close by, because I think that sense of social connection is also super important.
Thank you. Of course, there are, I guess, 8 different B vitamins.
Yes.
And we think of them as if they're one family of vitamins, but they're all unique and they all have unique properties.
Correct.
And one could arguably say that the one that you need to pay the most attention to is the one you're deficient in, because at the end of the day, we need all of them, right? And some are
We do
really
need all of them.
easy, like folate is vitamin B9, which is abundant in leafy greens and whole plant foods. B12, on the other hand, is not found in the plant kingdom. It's in dirt and microbes and in animal products. And so especially vegans should be taking a B12 supplement almost universally. And then there are others that are, niacin B3 is particularly helpful with heart health, but of course it has other benefits as well. Are there any particular B vitamins that you would say if someone's getting tested, sure, they could get tested for all of them, but are there any that are particularly correlated in your view with mental health concerns, especially for plant-based eaters?
Yeah, so, vitamin B12 is a huge one. Vitamin B1, thiamine. Vitamin B9 folate. So at least focusing on those, but I also sometimes suggest, Ushin, that if you're not sure and you haven't had your level checked, consider a complex B vitamin, because it's going to give you a range of the B vitamins that you need, and your body is going to pick up on the ones and absorb the ones that you need. So that's also a good place to start. Once you speak to your doctor, definitely have those tests done and see what it is that you might be able to add in from your diet and what else you might need.
Thank you. One thing to add is that recently, I think scientists have been discovering that bacteria in the human microbiome actually generate B vitamins. And so for some people, when their microbiome is healthy and well, they're actually B vitamin factories, so to speak. And yet a lot of us don't have super healthy microbiomes, whether it's from antibiotic exposure, lack of diversity of fiber in our diet, other dynamics that may have wiped out the healthy bacteria. And so then we don't have that resourcefulness in the modern world.
That's always helpful to know. And I think that, one of the things we want to think about in terms of the gut microbiome is, in addition to being little factories down there, their health is super important, because inflammation has been studied in multiple recent research studies to show that inflammation in the gut is actually a predisposing factor to conditions like depression, anxiety, even cognitive disorders. And how can we reduce the inflammation? Very simply, we can start to eat healthier, lean on those plant-based foods, those fiber-rich foods which we spoke about, those B vitamins, which B vitamins are hugely important because they orchestrate energy metabolism in the body. They're gaining ATP, cellular energy, currency from foods that we eat every day, and they help in so many different areas. So leaning on those foods and helping the gut healing, we know that healing of the gut takes about a month. So we want to start slow and steady and work to be consistent to help healing of the gut, which will get those B vitamin factories working and probably help us feel better over time.
Thank you. Justinese asked, what is your opinion about high levels of B12, like above 1,600 picograms per milliliter?
Yeah, so, the US recommendation guidelines for healthy B12 range is about 160 to 950. That's the sort of guidance around that. For some, even if it's not a clinical deficiency, a higher level within this range can contribute to increased energy. B12 toxicity is pretty rare as it's a water-soluble vitamin. Symptoms of excess can be unpleasant and include things like headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, rosacea, acne. So, I think in general, I think when we're thinking about vitamins, we want to stay within the recommended daily, so allotment or requirement that people, that there's guidance from the US DA recommendations. So rather eat foods that contain those, supplement if you need it, test, don't guess, check that out with your doctor. I think it's a misunderstanding of us for many people to think that if you take more of a vitamin, it's going to do more. It actually doesn't work that way, especially with water soluble vitamins. So I think staying within that range, unless there's something else going on, and then discussing with your doctor becomes important.
Got it. Thank you. We heard from Barbara, who said, sometimes I have lingering insomnia effects from free glutamate foods, such as peas and cooked tomatoes, especially 38 hours before. Is there an antidote or neutralizer I can eat or drink to quiet my brain at night? It's just a wakefulness issue, not anxiety. And I hate to give the foods up totally as they're healthy. And I have to watch Gaba supplements as I have a hypo blood pressure.
So the number of foods which help to increase GABA in physiologic ways in the body that may counteract the stimulating effects of glutamate in the brain. These foods can include those that are rich in glutamic acid, vegetables like sweet potatoes, spinach, and broccoli, lentils, brown rice, citrus fruits, and fermented foods. So, we may want to think about it that way. From a general relaxation standpoint, I find that a warm, soothing drink can be very helpful. My favorite is really an anti-inflammatory rich golden milk made with turmeric and black pepper and a nut milk of your choice is often something that calms your body down, gives your body the signal that you're heading towards rest. A chamomile or lavender tea can help as well. So there are ways to get around this. And the other suggestion is maybe having those foods that you love, but that can create wakefulness, maybe having them much earlier in the day, so that much of some of the metabolism of those foods has occurred by the time that you are going to bed. And trying that out as well could be helpful for you.
You spoke earlier about the importance of circadian rhythm. We all know that getting enough sleep is important to physical and mental health. It's while we're asleep, especially in the REM stage of sleep, that our brain is kind of filing memories from the day and therefore processing and digesting so that we can learn from what's happened instead of sort of getting overwhelmed and never really incorporating it into our learning process. The subconscious is a critical part of how we feel, and sleep is a critical part of how we create room for the subconscious mind to process and digest and develop. How do you cultivate a healthy circadian rhythm, or what are some tips for people who may be struggling with getting enough sleep or getting deep enough sleep, and get stressed about it, which can only make it worse sometimes? How do you break that cycle, and what are some things that you see helpful?
So I think that one of the things to realize is if you're not sleeping well, If you're sleeping poorly and you're struggling with sleep, it's not just that night that matters. It's actually the pattern of what's been going on, maybe weeks or months ahead of that, that has brought your body physiologically to this point where your circadian rhythm, which is your internal body clock, has been disrupted. So thinking about sleep hygiene is hugely important. That's one area. Thinking about a mindfulness practice that is helping to really calm your body down on a cellular level, and giving your body the message that you're practicing something that's mindfulness, that you're leaning into a relaxation exercise, that you're using a breathing exercise. People sometimes mention these in passing, but it's a similar to having a gym membership and actually going and working out in the gym. You have to practice these tools. So if you drink coffee, having it very early in the day and not loading it up with tons of sugar and processed creamer. If you do consume alcohol, having less alcohol and not leaning on alcohol, even though red wine has some positive resveratrol, not really leaning on that to help you go to sleep. Not shopping at night, not going to the supermarket or late night shopping, because the bright lights are not great for your brain, and they tend to keep you more alert and less relaxed and able to calm down. Keeping yourself hydrated, having dinner at an earlier hour, and that gives your food a chance to digest and for your body to be more restful. Not watching television until the minute that you decide you want to try to go to sleep. So shutting off your devices, not watching a late night movie or television. All of the screen effects are not great for us. So thinking about what it is in your life that you might be doing that's not working, and then also paying attention to those calming foods, a calming, soothing drink will help you move along a continuum of better sleep. A lot of people feel that working out during the day, having an exercise routine really helps their body get, not only into a better rhythm, but they feel rested, they want to go to bed in the evening. So all of those things actually almost function like an orchestra in our body. And that's how we want to think about the different components so that we start to sleep better over time. But I cannot stress enough, having some form of mindfulness practice that helps you just step back from the day and have a sense of peace that you're all able to tap into within yourself.
I want to go a little deeper on that with you. Mindfulness practices can mean a lot of different things. At the end of the day, the goal is to create a sense of calm and peace and tranquility and presence. Maybe some would say to connect with the still small voice within. Some would say to release reaction mode and step into a generative or creative presence. Some would say it's just about peace. Some would say it's just about witnessing what is rather than fighting it or trying to change it. Some people find this through religious practices or prayer, or for other people, it's through mindfulness meditations, or what does the research tell us about which forms work? Do they all work? Are there some that have been studied especially frequently? Any advice for somebody who's wanting to take advantage of these benefits and not knowing quite where to start?
Great. So we have a good amount of evidence, and I think the community is aware that exercise not only helps our physiological function and weight, it also helps our brain function. So we know that exercise is a proven route to success for physical and mental health. But when it comes to mindfulness, some of the things that have been studied are actual forms of meditation. For example, there was a study that was published in 2020 that looked at pranayama yoga, breathing exercises, breathwork yoga, and looked at cardiac disease and any improvement. But what was lovely about the study is it also showed that breathwork yoga helps to improve mood and anxiety. So, finding something, again, Ocean, that actually appeals to you. Maybe it is spiritually based for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that you like that moment of silence where you can center yourself, and that works for you. Maybe it's alternate nose breathing, something that you can just work through in that moment. I always work with individuals who have anxiety, and I say it's the times when you're feeling okay that you need to be practicing these exercises, because when that panic or that anxiety kicks in, you want to have some tools that you can try to help soothe yourself, because that moment can be so distressing. So it's about finding that practice that works for you. Some people listen to apps because the calming sound of either music or the sounds of nature work. Some people will listen to an app and it walks them through a mental exercise that they can connect with. So it's really like the gut microbiome is so unique for each one of us, as is these different practices. It's really what appeals to you. And most importantly, what's sustainable? What are you going to go back and do? Maybe you take one yoga class and you'll never take yoga again. But maybe you take that one yoga class and then you want to find a DVD that does it, or watch something on television, watch a streaming service where you can do a yoga class every day. So it really is finding that connection for yourself and then staying with it, because that's what's going to make you feel better in the end.
Yeah. In 2020, I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Tara Brach, who is a mindfulness teacher and practitioner. And I go to tarabrach.com regularly and do the guided meditations that she has on there. They're anywhere from 10 minutes to 25 minutes long. She publishes a new one like every week, and they're all free. And often before bed, I'll just take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, put on some headphones because I like just tuning out the world and being fully immersed and do that. And I find that I sleep better and I wake up happier. It's as if I'm in a bit of meditation the entire night after I go to sleep from that place. And sometimes I like to start the day with that as well. I will admit I don't always take the time for that, but I almost always feel better when I do.
When I do. I agree with you, and the same thing happens to me. I have the good intention. Sometimes the day gets better of me, but when I do practice it, my day just is so much smoother.
There's some debate in our society today about the potential framing that we're over-medicated with antidepressants and mood-regulating medications. Some people feel that doctors, psychiatrists are so overloaded with patients, they don't have the time to do therapy or really work with people. And it's easier to prescribe a pill than it is to help someone comprehensively change their diet and lifestyle and relationship patterns. And there's also the feeling that it's easier to get compliance if a patient just has to take a pill than it is to have them fundamentally change how they live and how they eat. But at the same time, we also see the cost that can come from medications, especially when they are not accompanied by holistic lifestyle change. Do you think that modern psychiatry has in some ways become a tool of the pharmaceutical industry, not necessarily through poor intentions, but in terms of the outcome, that the medications are where the money goes and where the research funding goes and where the reimbursements go? And as a result, we're kind of missing the boat on how the whole profession could really help people get better?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ocean. In This Is Your Brain on Food, one of the things I wrote was that until we solve nutritional problems, no amount of medication and psychotherapy is going to stem the tide of mental issues in our society. And I firmly believe that. So it's not about whether we eat better or we take a medication. It's the fact that I think that there's a certain impatience that both doctors and patients have. People want to feel better. Doctors are under pressure to prescribe. That's the way the insurance system sort of is driven in terms of reimbursement. Doctors really don't study enough nutrition in medical school. I can say that for myself. Some medical schools do better than others, but we don't learn enough. And if we want to learn it, we have to go elsewhere to learn it. So to have that conversation with the doctor is often not going to happen easily. Then there's, as you correctly pointed out, a lot of the research dollars go to big pharma and pharmaceutical trials, and those medications are life-saving for many people. But unfortunately, nutrition trials, nutritional science is less highly funded. So it's a combination of these factors. Do I think that we live in an over-medicated society? Yes, I do. And I think that because that is the easiest thing, is to pull out a prescription pad and to offer someone a medication. And sometimes it's necessary. Someone with life-threatening high blood pressure needs a medication. And over time, they might be able to incorporate a mindfulness practice and meditation and healthy eating and exercise and lower the doses of those medication. And some people can reverse type 2 diabetes or prediabetes by how they're eating and lifestyle changes. I do think, though, that psychiatry has gone in the direction of medications in a very strong way. And I think that far too often individuals are taking a medication, developing side effects outside of a context of what I consider to be a functional, holistic, and integrated approach in mental health, which is looking at all of the factors, looking at exercise, diet, mindfulness, hydration, outdoor time. 10 minutes of spending time outdoors gives us 80% of our daily vitamin D requirement. So I think it has to be placed in context. I think that if you're on a medication, you do need to speak to your doctor before making any changes. But I think diet and lifestyle can certainly help. And, I believe in food as medicine. It's not the only thing we should be doing, but it's a very big part of what we should be doing. And, the only things we can change are ourselves, our own habits, our own practices. It's a bigger issue to try to change the whole system. And while I think it would be great to do that, it's a much harder mountain to climb. But we can change what's at the end of our fork. We can change if we actually use that gym membership and go in and work out. Those things are within our control.
Yes, indeed they are. And there are some lights of hope in the larger systems at play, and you're one of them, to be sure. Do you think that the field of nutritional psychiatry is gaining ground? Do you think that there is a growing body of interest in this field, even from mainstream psychiatrists today?
Ocean, thank you for asking that question. I can't say that mainstream psychiatry is practicing nutritional psychiatry. I know that functional medicine doctors, lifestyle medicine doctors, and the larger community at whole, those individuals who want to eat healthier are becoming more and more aware. But I cannot yet say that every psychiatrist is talking to you about eating your blueberries. And that's simply not true. It might take at least a couple of decades before mainstream psychiatry catches up. But this is where an opportunity to speak to individuals like yourself and share this information becomes so powerful, because it provides the information to individuals who really want to learn more and do more. Just through social media, I've learned so much about what people are looking for. And I think that there's a very big component of people who want more strategies to feel better, physically and emotionally, and not just have to rely on those medications. So I'm encouraged by that.
Yes, absolutely. I am too. And it's so important right now, maybe more than ever. According to recent research, the percentage of Americans who identify as very happy is about half what it was for the last 30 years. It's been fairly consistent. It's fluctuated up and down. It's just fallen through the floor in the last couple of years. The number of people who are really not very happy or seriously unhappy has doubled in the last couple of years. So there's a real pandemic of misery and suffering that breaks my heart. And so many of us, especially our young people, are facing today, with adding hopelessness about the future to so many other dynamics and challenges. And in the midst of that, there is so much hope and possibility, and you're helping light the way. And I think this is critically important, more so than at any time in our history. And the amazing thing is, if we can create those positive feedback loops where we eat the right foods and we have more energy, and then we exercise more, and then we feel better about ourselves, and then we have more social connection, and then that inspires us to eat more healthy food because we're doing it with other people, and then we exercise with those people, and we create these positive feedback loops. We feel better and better, and guess what? We become a positive influence on the people around us, and we help turn the tide from despair and hopelessness to hope and possibility, joy and contribution. And I think we become able to be participants, not just in the mental health revolution, but actually in healing our world, in playing our part in challenging times, to be agents of love and transformation and goodness wherever it is needed. We all have a part to play. And I don't think that Hope comes from sitting on the sidelines thinking things will get better. It comes
Right.
from choosing to participate in positive ways and being a part of the solution on planet Earth. So, Uma, I think what you are advocating and what you are doing is nothing less than at the epicenter of, it's like an acupuncture point for how we can literally change the course of human life on Earth. I thank you.
Thank you, Ocean. Thank you, Ocean. Thank you for those kind words. And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of us participating in the solution. I think that so often we look for that solution outside of ourselves, which is why we lean a little bit too much sometimes on medications. And the more that we can look within ourselves and find that center of hope, lean on someone to help you find that center of hope, to move yourself forward, the better we can be and uplift ourselves.
We've been talking here with Dr. Uma Naidu, author of This Is Your Brain on Food, and a researcher, a teacher, a chef, and a voice of wisdom for our times. Uma, thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ocean. It's always lovely to connect with you.
When it comes to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illness, what really matters isn't how many books you read, how many webinars you attend, or how much you know. What really matters at the end of the day is what you eat and how you live. The science has given us what we need to know. Now it's time for action. It's time to implement and optimize your healthy lifestyle. It's time to get results. It's time to say goodbye to confusion and hello to clarity. It's time to say goodbye to bad habits and hello to good ones. It's time to fall in love with foods that love you back. It's time to join a community that will support you in achieving your goals. It's time for Whole Life Club.